The Royal Australian Air Force has confirmed that they have grounded their F-35 Joint Strike Fighter warplanes. All 9 of the planes are currently in their training base in Arizona after a catastrophic engine failure of one of the American fleet.
The F-35 Joint Strike Fighters are the most sophisticated and expensive combat warplanes in Australia's Air Force. To tell us more, we're joined by Dr. Malcolm Davis. He's a senior analyst at the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. Dr. Davis, thanks for your time this morning.
My pleasure.
Well, we've heard this is due to a catastrophic engine failure, but these things happen from time to time. So clearly there's a belief that this is something systemic affecting potentially all of the aircraft.
Well, the information is that this is a problem with the engine's fuel system. There's a fuel pipe that may be faulty, and the question is how many of these faulty fuel pipes have been fitted to the F-35s? And that's why they've grounded the aircraft, because they need to check the entire F-35 fleet around the world to make sure that there's not a faulty fuel pipe that caused this crash in South Carolina.
We hear the government talking up the Joint Strike Fighter so often, the F-35. What is it about the Joint Strike Fighter that is so special, that is so sought after by our Air Force and other Air Forces around the world? What can it do that others can't?
It's a 5th generation aircraft, and the key points, the key advantages that it has are firstly stealth. It's very difficult to be detected on radar. It's not invisible, but it is very difficult. And so it offers the pilot of the F-35 a first look, first shot, first kill advantage over other aircraft. Second advantage the F-35 has is data integration and sensor fusion, whereby the pilot can bring together a variety of information from onboard and offboard sensors to give him a God's eye perspective and give him an informational advantage over a standard aircraft. So it's that combination of stealth and information fusion that really sets the F-35 apart.
What is this grounding going to do for Australia's F-35 program?
Look, we've got 9 aircraft sitting in Luke Air Force Base over in Arizona. We'll have an eventual total of 72. There's an option for a further 28 beyond that. I think that this is the sort of thing that happens with an aircraft that is still in development, and it's better to ground them now and find the source of the problem and fix it than go on with an aircraft that is, maybe has a serious problem. So that's what they're doing. They'll ground the aircraft, they'll find the problem, they'll fix it, and the aircraft will be back to flying, fairly quickly, maybe in as early as 48 to 72 hours, or it could be sometime later. But it's not going to have a serious long-term effect on the fleet.
The program, as you hinted at, has been plagued by quite a few setbacks over the years, and critics of it sort of say that this has been sort of a cascading series of setbacks. But I mean, this is an extremely sophisticated piece of technology, isn't it? Are we seeing more of these sort of hiccups than we would otherwise see in developing such sophisticated technology?
Well, ironically, this particular problem is not with the sophisticated side of the aircraft. It's a fuel pump or a fuel pipe in the engine. And so that's a fairly sort of basic mechanical issue that needs to be fixed. The sophisticated side of things are the sensors, the computers, the stealth technologies, and all of those are working perfectly fine.
What is Australia's, capability should the F-35 be further delayed? Because, as I understand, there is a hole that will become, I suppose, increasingly gaping if there's further delays down the track.
Well, look, there's not going to be further delays that would create a capability gap. We already have 9 of the aircraft. We'll be getting more over the coming years, and we'll achieve full operational capability by 2023. In a really bad scenario, then we would carry on with the Super Hornets and maybe acquire additional Super Hornets. But really, that scenario is pretty unlikely. I think we'll get the F-35 on schedule and at decreasing cost, and we'll achieve full operational capability by 2023.
So in your opinion, when you look at it as a whole, is the program going well, in your view?
I think it is. I accept that it's taken way too long to get to this level of development, and that's given our adversaries time to develop countermeasures. That's going to lead to a reduced margin of advantage over the aircraft's lifetime. So we need to think about complementary capabilities or updates sooner rather than later. But the aircraft overall is going very well. cost is coming down, development problems are being solved, it's moving towards full operational capability. It's just had its first combat debut in over Syria, and they're just now flying off the Royal Navy's new aircraft carrier. So, you know, things are moving ahead smoothly as best we can, apart from this one problem which was completely unforeseen, and I think it's easily fixed.
You spoke about adversaries creating countermeasures to the JSF. Who are you referring to, and what sort of technology has been built by adversaries to try to counter the power of the Joint Strike Fighter?
Look, let's be clear, the adversaries we're talking about are China and Russia, and they are our two peer adversaries going forward into the future. And if you look at where the US is going now and its planning, it's rapidly shifting gears to prepare for major power interstate warfare against China and Russia. And so part of that is increasing the readiness of US Air Force units around the world and building the sorts of capabilities needed for that sort of major power interstate war as opposed to counter-terrorism battles. And I think the sort of countermeasures that the Chinese and the Russians are developing are counters against stealth, what's known as low-frequency radars that can maybe detect the F-35 at a longer range, also longer-range air-to-air missiles, and the Russians are investing in particular in a 4.5 generation platform called the Su-35, which has faster speed, longer range and higher payload, but it doesn't have the stealth of the F-35. And so it then becomes an issue of quality versus quantity. And I think there's the challenge in the future, is how do we respond to China and Russia as our clear peer adversaries.
Dr. Malcolm Davis, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks very much for sharing your insights this morning.
My pleasure.